Hey, this is the fourth in a series on righteousness. I've been making the point that righteousness walks on 2 feet. The first is your faith in God and a growing knowledge of God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. The second, though, is coming to believe what God says about you and to know yourself in that light. Most Christians are good with the first, but not so good with the second. And this was borne out in the life of Abraham. For 10 years, Abraham walked with God and did some pretty amazing things. But even though God looked him in the eye at least 3 times and told Abraham who he was, Abraham did not believe it. Genesis 15 is a place where God finally convinced him that he was the father of many nations. And from that moment, the process of becoming that thing began. So, how about you? When did you start walking with God? Like Abraham, have you called upon him? Have you built altars? Have you worshiped? Have you imperfectly left all like Abraham did to seek a better country? And you might have even had some amazing spiritual victories just like him. But if you're like him, you also can be just as clueless about who you are as he was about himself. So have you sensed God's intent for your life? Have you embraced that regardless the obstacles or your own failings? Like I said, if you haven't, you're in good company. We're all wired the same way. We all have this inordinate need to see something materialized before we believe it. But that's not how God operates. Yes, we need to see, but we need to see or sense it through the eyes of faith. Something on the inside has to say or yes. And it could be a dramatic encounter like Abraham, or it might not be. For me, it was when I looked back into my teenage heart and realized the dream I had. I knew that God put it there. And I'll share with you that later on in a future post, but that dream has come true through the process we talked about yesterday. And I'm not talking about a calling as we normally think about it, called to be a minister or called to be a whatever. No, the whatever is a message that is being formed in you through the story of your life that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it goes through the process I mentioned yesterday, the process of faith, of hope, of love. So there's not a problem on God's side speaking. In fact, Solomon says that God has put eternity into the heart of every person. He has lighted up, as it were, each person coming into the world with God's vision for themselves. And this eternity or this light includes the destiny God envisioned when he imagined you. And God was going to speak this time and time and time again. Like a sower with seed, he's just scattering that seed continually. So the problem is not on his side to speak, but the problem is on ours to hear and believe. It could be like that first soil in the parable of the sower, that there are hard patches in our soul, which makes it difficult for you to hear or believe God's heart for you. You could have been told early on that your life won't amount to anything, or life just might not be treating you that kindly. Hardness of heart or the well-worn path is in the parable of the sower is not just for non-Christian unbelievers, it also affects Christian unbelievers. So let's just think about this. What I would do is I'd revisit the dreams you've had. Why do we discount them so quickly? You were like Abraham and like every person created for significance, to be blessed and multiplied, to have influence far beyond your life. For you, this will have a specific hook, but when God is done, you will not only have a message, but you will be the message. And not just a message of his faithfulness and power, but more than that, you will be an embodiment of his faithfulness and power. Also of his love, of his grace, of his righteousness. But where to begin? First, I don't know exactly where you are, so I'm just going to throw a couple spitballs. One thing I do know is that whether you are close or far from God, knowing yourself as the loved of God doesn't feel right. So embracing this reality, regardless of our feelings, regardless of our circumstances or situation, embracing this reality is the key to everything else in your life. And I talked a number of series ago about Jude's admonition to keep yourself in the love of God. You, the loved, are to keep yourself in an awareness of his love through thick and through thin. But second, take inventory of your life. Look back. What dreams have you had about yourself? Take some time and lay them out before God. Ask him, are these really from you? Is this part of my eternity? Remember, it took Abraham 10 years to finally hear and believe. So I hope this has helped, or at least pulled off a scab. God had to pull a scab off of Abraham. The next time I want to talk a bit more about how to come to that place of faith and also those things that have been stopping us. But until next time.